Live from twitch.tv/LCK Discord.
94 and a half minutes on the clock. They take it home. Oh, look at the cleanse. Look at the moves. Faker, what was that?
Oh my god, the triple stun! Massive key burst, triple kill, quadra kill! Is this gonna be the penta? He's gonna be delivered at this time! That's gonna be
You're listening to the LCK Discord podcast. And now for your hosts, Cho and Mon0.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the LCK Discord podcast reboot. My name is Mon0, and today I am joined by my co-host Cho. Cho, say hello.
Hello.
And today we are going to bring you guys a newfound energy within the LCK Discord podcast. And specifically, we're going to be talking about MSI today. MSI has been a tremendously fun tournament, and recently we've been talking about, trying to bring more engaging topic discussions and more of a newfound energy within this podcast. And so today we're going to be talking about MSI report cards. But before we get into all of that jazz, let's get into, who the hell are we? Because we're a bunch of random nobodies on the LCK server. Well, except for you, since you're an almighty powerful mod. So why don't you introduce yourself, Cho?
Well, hello everyone, all minus 50 people that are listening. My name is Cho. I moderate the LCK Discord, but some people say I don't do anything. I have been watching the LCK since the very first tournament that OG never did, which was the Invitational back in, I want to say 2012. I think it was. Been watching LCK ever since, watched League of Legends for a long time. I'm a relatively high elo player, main support. And I also coached the Kazakhstan national team in League of Legends. I managed to beat the assholes of Uzbekistan, which was a pretty big success for us. Currently retired from coaching, taking a bit of a break. So yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know.
There you go.
Very short.
And I actually didn't know that. I didn't know you coached like big time. That's really cool.
I had the big leagues.
The big boys. For me, my name is Mon0. I'm 23. I'm from Chicago. I am the head coach for Route Morse University for the varsity League of Legends team. I have been playing since season 3. I've watched pretty much most big LCK matches starting in 2015. Mostly for finals, but it's really hard to watch LCK and NA if you want to graduate from school and also have a life. So once I finished school in 2017, I pretty much started watching LCK full time. I'd say I'd probably watch 90% of the games, but I watch it mainly because I really love the casters and the kind of, narratives that the LCK has. And I also really want to become a professional League of Legends coach, and for NALCS ideally, since that's my home region, and I really want to make a difference in people's lives when it comes to coaching and playing League of Legends. So
Nice.
On that note, transitioning from who we are into what we're doing today. So for our agenda for the day, I guess we're going to be talking about the mid-season invitational this year. Now, I don't know about you, Cho, but I've found this tournament extremely fun to watch, and also it's been a really competitive tournament. So what are your thoughts on it so far?
Yeah, MSI has been really, really entertaining to watch. Part of that, or a big part of that, is that the meta is extremely fast-paced. There's constantly a lot of actions. The games are quite bloody,
Yes,
in a way.
agreed.
And another thing is that they're I don't know if that's the meta, but there aren't really any bad teams. It's probably one of the most competitive League of Legends tournaments in a very long time. In terms of how every team can beat every team except for Evos because they suck. So overall, have been really enjoying the main event for MSI. The planes were a bit boring, but the main event has more than delivered in my opinion, in terms of quality and entertainment factor.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. When Riot opened up the season on 8.1, and that people start playing it competitively, and when we had to figure it out in scrims for RMU, it was a very dry process in terms that the games were just last forever. People be running first picking GP, and the games would run until GP had like 3 or 4 items, and by then it was like 40 minutes, and games were kind of on the unwatchable end of the spectrum, that they were interesting and fun, but you would have games that would have no kills until like 40 minutes, like Kingzone versus a team that I'm blanking out on, but I know that game lasted super long. But now it's to the point where we're at MSI, and the teams, I 100% agree that the teams are all fairly competitive. Not that they're on an even skill level, but they're still very, they're challenging each other to a degree where it makes it interesting. Like Fnatic versus Kingzone, where you have Caps getting a double kill 2 turds deep onto BDD or Praying Gorilla, and the games are bloody, and the level 1s are incredibly interesting. I think that's probably one of the most interesting parts about this tournament so far, is how teams have used early levels to take advantages of each other, or of each other's weaknesses, or whatever you want to call it. But I agree with you 100%. This is such a fun tournament to watch, and I am so excited for the knockout round.
Oh yeah.
Especially because now it's not in the ULCS studio, it's in Paris.
Yeah.
Big boy stage.
I don't know why Riot decided to fucking hold this tournament there. It's so bad. Like, it's such a small stage. I mean, I know why. It's like at 10 a.m., 11 a.m. in EU, and if they held it in a big stage, it would be half empty, but, like, I don't know. It kind of killed the hype, but at least the game's more than made up for it.
Yeah, and, like, I mean, I still think, like, they made the broadcast, first of all, the broadcast has been, like, beyond exceptional. And I do think they at least made the stage so it feels like it's not EU LCS necessarily. Like, it looks different and kind of feels a little bit different. So, I applaud Riot. There. But I will say that I'm a bit disappointed that it's not, like, not in the, at least Brazil. That was awesome. It was always pretty packed last year, even during the quieter stages. However, we got to move on, because we got to give our report cards, because school is in session. We've got Professor Cho and Dr. Mono here. We got some grades to give these teams, and I guess with this report card, so if you guys have never seen any of these kind of sport analysis broadcasts when it comes to report cards or any of that, essentially we give a grade on our we have our previous expectations of these teams beforehand, and then we apply those expectations and based on how well the teams do, and then we give them a grade, and then we have a reasoning for why we give it. And so that will be our what will take up the majority of the show. So let's get into that. So we are going to give our grand reveals of the report cards right here. Boom, baby. And yep, that looks, there we go. All right, Cho. Let's start with your general report card. Explain, like, the thought processes, in giving out these grades.
Well, I don't want to give too much info because we're going to go into each team individually and analyze their pros and cons, but, like, just, US, they suck. Team Liquid and Fnatic suck a little bit less. Kingzone is, well, we'll touch on that very soon. And Flash Wolves and Kingzone are they are the best teams from the group stages. So these grades are pretty much, in my opinion, reflective of how the teams performed. Like, maybe you could give a minus here, a plus there, but I would say that I'm pretty happy with how I graded these teams overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, ours kind of look fairly similar in terms of, the caliber of where we gave our grades out. Personally, I kind of used previous like expectations of teams. Like, I'm not gonna give RNG an A+ because of the game against Liquid, where MLXD decided to waltz into the enemy team when Baron was up. But overall, I grade how strong the teams look. I graded based on how well I think their skill ceiling cap was, like, especially with Liquid and with these other teams. However, I did a team like EVOS. Obviously, they're it's stacked up against these really talented teams, and so I expected them to perform not optimally, but I guess we'll get into that once we start talking about once we start grading the teams. So how about we start off with EVOS and your reasoning why you gave them an F+ and I gave them a D-, starting with you.
Okay, well, what first thing you need to realize is that EVOS are not a wildcard region anymore. Vietnam has been made a major region, and then when you take into consideration that they're a major region that went 2-8, I believe it was, that's pretty fucking bad. Like, if this was a wildcard team that went 2-8, I'd be like, okay, that's to be expected. They kaboomed a team here and there, but for a major region, that's pretty horrible. Then you take into consideration that, like, they had two good players, which were Stark and Slay. Like, I think Stark played really well, just like he did last year on GAM. He looked really solid.
Agreed.
Slay has also been really good as well. Pretty solid AD carry. But then the rest of the team just isn't up to par. Warzone is the worst mid laner at this tournament. Like, if you take a look at any stats, whether it's KDA or gold difference at 10 minutes or CS difference at 10 minutes, he is dead bottom. Like, I was debating whether Pobelter is worse than Warzone, but no, Warzone is fucking horrible. Like, he's talking about how he's going to smash teeth in, but yeah, maybe you should consider playing League of Legends a bit more competently.
Oof.
Before you do anything else. Then you have Yijin, who again is probably the worst jungler. Just like Warzone is the worst mid laner, Yijin is the worst jungler in the main stage. Like, again, just look at the stats. He's dead bottom. He does nothing. I think he only performed on like Kha'Zix. And the scarring game versus Fnatic was also, I suppose, serviceable. But like, other than that, he just looks like a headless chicken. Like no sense in pathing, just randomly runs around, and it's kind of a shame because he was so hyped after like they won where they beat TL, I believe. They were like, oh my god, it's the second coming of Levi, and he's going to import another Vietnam jungler.
Yeah,
and that hype died pretty quickly. Like, he just hasn't looked good, and Ron OP has also been pretty bad.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I didn't think you could get worse than Archie, who was legitimately inting, I believe, last tournament that we saw him in. But yeah, Ron OP did not look good. He had that one cool play, I believe, on Gorilla in the bot lane where Gorilla kind of went too deep for him. Then he headbutted him into the turret and ignited.
I know exactly of that play. Yep.
But like, apart from that, I mean, he hasn't looked good, and it's kind of like you want to see Stark and Slay with like, and maybe Warzone, I don't know, like with better teammates essentially, and maybe like the GOM coach Tinekun, who I think is really smart, and like his drafts like when Gigabyte Marines played were the highlight of the team. So absolutely. Like, you kind of want to see Stark and Slay on a much better team than this, because like, as I said, for a major region, going 2-8 is absolutely disgusting. Like, Riot completely dropped the ball on making Vietnam a major region. I don't know if that was to save NA the requirement to play in the play-ins.
Come on.
Or like, I just don't know why they made Vietnam a major region. Like, I guess they were high off the GAM hype, but just Vietnam has not shown anything particularly impressive here, and that's why I graded them F+.
Yeah.
Because having two semi-decent players and everyone else just being horrible, just, and I won't even touch on the drafts. Just they suck.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I feel that, and I understand that they, even though they're a major region, it doesn't necessarily equate to like, are they able to, compete with the best teams from like actual major regions? So, I mean, I would also kind of put, you can make the argument that you could put LMS and the Vietnam League kind of in the same tier of strength. And I mean, like, I've always thought Flash Wolves have been, 10 steps ahead of most teams in the world, but I feel like every other, most other LMS teams aren't necessarily like to the level of, top 3 EU, NA, China, Korea, etc.
The problem with LMS is that they're just extremely top heavy as a region. Like, have kind of Flash Wolves, HQ, J Team, and then everyone else just kind of just pretty bad.
Exactly. And I'm sure it's probably, I mean, I don't actually know. I just assume that it's probably similar when it comes to Vietnam, where this team, EVOS and Gigabyte Marines, are within that caliber of strength. But overall, like, our grades were 1 apart. I don't even think an F+ actually exists, by the way, or at least in the United States. I think if you fail, you just get an F. There's no F plus.
Yeah.
So
Also, regarding LMS, I was just talking previously how teams used to stack up. Like, this split was obviously different. It was Flash Wolves, then I believe G-Rex, which have a pretty cool logo. And then I think it was Machi Esports who were third.
oh, okay.
But yeah, in general, it was Flash Wolves HQ or HQ Flash Wolves.
Yeah,
but HQ has
traditionally.
been pretty bad. But, so that's the thing with LMS; they're just a very top-heavy
Yeah.
region.
We'll get to them soon. But
Oh yeah.
But for me, when it comes to Evos, I did think like watching Stark play was incredibly interesting. In terms of like who he picked, like I thought the Kennen was really interesting, even though I think 8-9 was the Kennen changes, and they were playing on 8-8. So I thought it was pretty interesting that they whipped Kennen out. I'm blanking on who they picked that into. It was the Fnatic game, I believe.
I'm not sure.
But regardless, I thought that pick was fairly interesting. Your point about Yijin was I thought that was incredibly interesting because going into the tournament, everyone was just so hyped on, this is the second.
I'm gonna interrupt you for a second. It was versus Kingzone.
Kingzone. Okay, there you go. But yeah, Yijin, I did kind of buy into the hype after they played Gambit, correct?
Yes, he was
that he was the next coming of Levi, and then he gets to MSI the group stages, and it was very there were very like fundamental errors, like when he was playing Skarner and he goes for a Raptor invade without priority, and then he does manage to kill Zac and manages to break Zac's passive and his little bloblets, but that was it, and then he ends up dying, and then the game's pretty much over after that. And on top of that, you're doing that you're giving first blood away into Warzone, and I believe Discord just crashed. Well, I guess it's just me, because Discord is just not working too well. So right now it's just me flying solo for a bit, but I'll elaborate on the point. Oh, is he back? Dude, literally as we started this show, Discord the calls just didn't work. But I will improvise as we go along. But overall, I think Cho nailed it when it came to talking about all the teams. And it won't let me join call. So apologies for this technical difficulties. I'll continue to talk, and hopefully Cho will get back in here. Oh, is he back? Hilarious. Lol. Yeah, it says awaiting endpoint on Discord. Alright, you know what? I'll keep the show rolling. I got this, boys. Hold on. Here, we'll put on the camera to entertain the viewers as we go along. Okay, continue seeing if we can reconnect here. So apologies for the technical difficulties. Oh god, my room's a mess. Hello? Jesus Christ, what's going on?
Jeez.
Yep. Oh, can you hear me?
Hello.
Oh my
Yes.
god, we're alive.
God damn it.
Classic Discord just acting up in the middle of the show.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay,
Well,
where were we?
we appear to be back. I was just finishing my points on Evo, so we can move on to Liquid unless you have any other points you would like to bring up.
No, I think that about covers it.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Team Liquid. Team Liquid. The pride and joy of North America. And let me just start this off with, I have been a Curse fan since 2013 because Voyboy and Nijackie, they were my favorite players when I first got into League. I've stuck with Liquid, through the thick and thin, through the Season 5 glory days, through the Curse reverse sweep to send LMQ to Worlds. to Liquid winning, or Liquid getting first 2015, and then Cloud9 completely swiping away their Worlds chance with high jungling and Incarnation mid. And I was there for when Piglet got double TP'd on by CLG to not go to NA finals. I was there the whole entire season last year when they just sucked ass. They just were awful, and I watched those games and they were painful. And so this year was awesome. Liquid won NA, very decisively. Their team has been fun to watch all year, in my opinion. And so I was really excited about this team at MSI. And I even put them 4th place, of course, to go to the knockout rounds. And they got close. They got very, very close. But this team this year, or this tournament, I should say, they were so disappointing in the sense that, I respected their comeback, and I actually did think that they would be able to come back since Fnatic almost threw their entire tournament away. But I am just beyond confused how Pobelter looked so poor this entire tournament. And Olleh I wasn't as surprised with because he's been underperforming since he's been on Liquid.
Yes.
But I was so shocked with Pobelter because Pobelter had a very, very strong playoffs. He was the finals MVP. And, I mean, he did play Azir 3 games, and Azir's shit now. But I was just really surprised how Pobelter went from looking a very confident, having a confident summer last year, having a great spring split, to just having a garbage MSI. And let's talk about the cons with Liquid, since you love to feast off of NA's tiers. So why don't you give your input?
Okay, sorry, on what? On TL as a whole?
On TL's cons, and then we can talk about pros and stuff.
Okay, well, just from watching NA playoffs, I was not impressed. I thought NA playoffs were pretty bad, and the fact that TL just completely stomped 100 Thieves. I was worried about NA going into this tournament, so when they were 0-6, I was like, wow. I was not surprised by it. I did not think the playoffs were particularly high quality.
Mind you.
Yeah.
Not 0-6.
1-5. Yeah, sorry, my bad. 1-5. That's a big improvement. So going into this, I wasn't that surprised, but man, what a implosion, rivaling G2's implosion at MSI last year or 2 years ago, I believe it was. Okay, let's start off with Olleh, who has been playing dog shit ever since he joined TL, as you said. But okay, it might sound harsh, but I don't think he should be picked up by a team ever again, because what he did at this event is just completely, I don't know how to even phrase it. He left his team hanging. Yeah, he left his team hanging in the middle of the tournament because he had nerves or some shit. What the fuck? I don't understand how a pro player can do that. He basically left 4 of his team members hanging.
Mm-hmm. I mean, from what I God damn it, there he goes. Man, I think maybe Olleh is oh god, what a disaster. All right, just to respond to that, I completely agree with Olleh leaving. I love Olleh as a person, and I think his personality and his the fact that he's not afraid to be vulnerable is admirable. But I do agree that this nerve issue or this tilting issue is kind of something that is unacceptable. And to be fair, I know from sources that Joey, TL's substitute, is actually welcome back.
Yeah, Discord is being extremely annoying today.
I was responding to you, even though you weren't here.
Okay.
I was responding to you that I completely agree that what Olleh did as a professional is not acceptable, especially in a tournament this high stakes. However, I do know Liquid have been considering Joey LCS ready, and to the extent where I wouldn't be surprised to see him on a team next split. Just from what they said. I mean, watching him play was a different story, but
I mean, you can't blame Joey too much because it's like one thing to play in an LCS game and another thing to play on a big tournament is MSI.
Yeah. So,
like,
yeah, and like I don't know. I mean, they had Olleh at the end of the tournament kind of playing like Janna, and I mean, he only managed to grab his Morgana one game, which I am sure was one of the main points Liquid were hoping to grab, or one of the main priority picks. So, yeah, you can continue about anything you were talking about, how Olleh was just unacceptable, if you wanted to continue your thought.
Yeah, like what he did was just extremely unprofessional. Like, you kind of have to wonder how that game would have went if Olleh started instead of Joey. I mean, I doubt it would have changed much, but
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know what is up with him. I think like the big thing is that when he played on what was it, Immortals with Cody-san, I think that he was the leader in lane, probably extremely vocal, but then he went to play with Doublelift, and I'm like pretty sure the Doublelift is the leader in that lane.
Yeah.
And so Olleh might feel that pressure of like needing to perform to the legacy of Doublelift or whatever, but I mean, that's still not a reason to abandon your fucking teammates in the middle of a tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just extremely disgusting. Like, if TL doesn't bench him next season for a different support, I don't know. It would be extremely weird. I guess they would have that much faith in him to not repeat that same thing again at Worlds if they go to Worlds. But yeah, the other big con for TL was Pobelter. Pobelter was horrible. If Warzone didn't exist, like, Pobelter would be the worst mid laner to tournament. Like, he was so bad. Like, oh my god, Pobelter was legitimately inting every game. Like, or not even inting. Like, either he didn't do anything or he just got randomly caught in random places. Like, I was amazed, and I said that in the Discord, that it took teams a very long time to figure out that Malzahar was such an obvious crutch pick for Pobelter in the mid lane. Like, if it wasn't for Malzahar, I guarantee you TL would be 0-10. Like, they won every game they won, I believe, was with Malzahar after their initial loss streak. Like, they picked Malzahar, they won every game with it, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
I'm just amazed. Yeah,
maybe
I'm just
one
amazed.
that wasn't that, but
yeah, it could be. I'm just amazed teams didn't figure it out sooner. I'm like, Fnatic, the tiebreaker, to ban Malzahar. I'm like, okay, like, Fnatic won. It's like a one game. Ban Malzahar winning, because Pobelter just can't play anything else. He has not been impressive on any pick except that Malzahar. Like, I don't know, like, yeah, Azir isn't that good anymore, but what about Cass? I'm pretty sure Pobelter plays a good Cass, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Like, his Cassiopeia is solid. They never picked that in the tournament, I don't think. So, just horrible performance for Pobelter. He got completely outclassed by every mid laner except Warzone, which I don't think that's like a big something to be proud of. Oh, I managed to not be as shit as a Vietnamese mid laner. Wow. Yeah. Just
one of like the main things that like I thought was incredibly like confusing was more of like how Pobelter was playing. Like, yes, like he was like he wasn't like straight up inting, but like there was just so many times where like his like the way like like Liquid never looked to play around mid. Like, it was pretty much exclusively only to play around Doublelift and control neutral shit until eventually they were going to find leads and take over the mid game to win team fights. And the way they were using Pobelter was just like, I mean, he was just TPing the side waves to prevent dives and just trying to stall out the game, which like I understand if your win condition is just to go for the team fight at a certain item power spike or team composition spike, but it was almost like he was just being used as a second support. Like, do damage with Malzahar E, use the Malzahar silence, get the Karma Mantra shield, but like there was no effort being put through Liquid to actually make like meaningful plays through the use of Pobelter. It was just to prevent and cock block a dive or something like that, and I just thought that was so weird because Pobelter's like a very experienced player, and frankly I don't think he's that terrible of a North American mid laner well, I mean, NA mid's low, but like in terms of his power or like his skills, like we've seen him do we've seen him have very strong performances, and I do agree that 100 Thieves didn't really give Liquid much of a run for their money, but I wasn't thinking that Pobelter's like use of his capabilities would just fall this hard. Like, this was just like a complete failure, and if it wasn't for Doublelift or Xmithy, like Liquid have nothing. Like, they're meaningless as a team this tournament. So
yeah, like that was pretty much exemplified in the last game, TL played versus Fnatic, where Caps just ran circles around Pobelter.
Yep.
Like, that was tragic to watch. He outroamed him. Like, he went top I don't know how many times, and he was still up in CS. Like, wow.
But yeah, I do agree that, or I will say that I thought Xmithy had a relatively decent tournament. I don't think it was strong, but he was certainly a shining point when it comes to some of the games. Like, I mean, maybe not Flash Wolves early on. That was pretty dumb. The game they won, that is. And then, you know, obviously the Baron steal, that was hype. That got me going. that got me like 5 messages from Jason on Discord with just all caps. Jason Champ in the chat. Oh, damn. Wait, we don't have that on the Twitch chat. Oh, well. I think only I have that. That's from another server of mine. But, yeah, I did think Doublelift kind of redeemed himself from last year's Worlds performance. You know, I don't necessarily think it's anything special, but at least it's a step forward from being the most memed on player on Reddit to where he's at least spared for the day. So
yeah, I agree. Doublelift was the best performer on TL, and it kind of sucked for him. He tried to fucking drag this garbage team to the next round, but he just wasn't able to. Like, probably his best performance in a very long time. Like, from what I've been seeing from Doublelift internationally, like, played really well. Maybe since 2014, like, I would say it's his best international performance. He played really well. It's just that when you have a horrible support, a horrible mid laner, and a top laner that you pay 1 million for to play tanks, like, yeah, like, when I'm talking about Impact, I think Impact was solid for the most part, but it's like anyone can play tanks decently. It doesn't take that much skill. And then it sucks because the one carry game we saw was the Vlad game versus versus Fnatic, the tiebreaker. And he got completely screwed over in that level 1. That was really sad for Impact because Xmithy got first blood, I believe, and then Vlad had to walk all the way over back to lane.
He burned his
Ignite. While Bwipo just TP'd and just managed to get ahead of the Vlad, and then he got camped by Caps over and over again. So that was pretty sad for him. But yeah, back to DL, definitely his best international performance in a very long time. It was a clear win condition for TL. They tried to play around him. Sometimes it worked, mainly when Pobelter got Malzahar. Sometimes it didn't. But yeah, I feel bad for him. Like, I don't particularly like Doublelift that much as a player, but I do feel bad for him in this case because I think he played his heart out. But yeah, you can't do much when your team isn't up to par.
And it's like, I mean, like, the you know, it does suck that Liquid lost and, like, you know, they failed tragically. I will say though that, like, you know, for this team, like, this is kind of just like a trial run for this team, and I mean, I'm not using that as an excuse to why we lost, because I'm sure at Worlds we're gonna see something very similar, because that's just how NA performs internationally. However, this does give them a kind of like a wake-up call, since these guys have been to multiple Worlds tournaments, and this is the first time they've all kind of done this together. I think that it does leave, like, windows for, you know, the team to really get their shit together when it comes to going to Worlds. Ideally, they would make it. Mainly because, like, you know, you look at TSM at MSI last year, you know, Doublelift took that break and played for Liquid in the relegation tournament. And then Wild Turtle had, you know, terrible performances at MSI last year. And then TSM decided to bring Doublelift back, and, you know, they win NA. And then they get to Worlds, and then they do the exact same thing that they did in this tournament.
Yeah.
So, you know, if anything, if this team sticks together, I think that there is a lot of opportunity for them to really, you know, get their shit together to really make a respected Worlds run. Like, they're not going to do anything special because they're just not that good of a team, in my opinion, or a region in general. But I do think that they will hopefully get their act together and be able to get a better performance in it, at least. So, TL, get your shit together, please. Please, for me. But moving on, let's talk about Fnatic, which did not earn much of a higher grade from me than Liquid did. You gave him C+, I gave him C-. You know, I gave him a one like degree grade. You gave them about 2 degree grades higher from Liquid. let's hear your Fnatic opinions.
Yeah, Fnatic is an extremely weird team, and in all the games except the tiebreaker I've seen them, they seem to be extremely limited by what Reckless can do. Like, there are a few instances where Reckless got kind of drafted into a bad spot, like the Jin game, for example. He couldn't do much there. But, like, overall, it seems that, like, his champion pool is a huge issue for Fnatic. He legitimately plays, like, what, Tristana, Sivir, yeah, that's about it, really.
He had the Zai game.
Yeah, okay, yeah, he had a good Zai game, but I'm talking about the first initial games until the tiebreaker. Because the way it seemed to me was that he just played two champions. Like, he picked, like, the first game versus RNG, they took to Kaisa, and man, he was horrible on that champion. He did not look up to par. It just seems that, like, Fnatic basically rely on Caps and Broxa. Like, they have both been playing extremely well. You could argue that Caps is one of the best mid laners in the tournament. I'd personally give it to Maple, with Caps being a close second.
Mm-hmm.
But Broxa is an amazing best jungler in the tournament, for me, at the very least. And it's basically like, if Caps or Broxa don't get going, Fnatic is screwed. And then they basically draft these late game scaling comps, which are fucking horrible. And yeah, then they like pick Sivir, and if Caps and Broxa don't get ahead in the early to mid game, they just rely on the Sivir to try and carry them. And the thing with that is you need to play team fights extremely well, in order to basically get ahead. And when you're at that point, if you're behind in goal, then you go late game for Sivir. And yeah, you just weren't able to do that. Reckless hasn't been playing particularly well until that tiebreaker game where I was like, damn, that's pretty good. That's what I want to see from Reckless. And like another thing that people don't mention, I haven't seen mentioned, was Hylissang in the bot lane. I was not that impressed with Hylissang. Like he performed better than Reckless overall in my opinion, but he still had this stupid shit. I don't know how many times he got caught. Like realistically, I think he got caught more than any other player in this tournament. Just doing stupid shit. Like what game was that? Was it versus Evos where he was playing Tom Kench? And he was like all the way like cross map away from his team. I don't know what the fuck he was doing. Maybe he was warding. Like it was the most random thing I've ever seen from a support player getting caught like that. His Tom Kench has been horrible in my opinion. Like Olleh's was worse, but Hylissang was also pretty bad. Like I remember that fight around Baron where he just randomly tongue lashed and died for like no fucking reason. Don't tongue lash as Tom Kench in team fights. It's usually not worth it. I think Olleh actually did that same thing in a game I remember watching. I'm not sure if it was Olleh actually, but someone did it. I remember that same thing happening where someone tongue lashed and lost him the fight instead of beating his fucking carry. So yeah, like he's only played Braum really until the tiebreaker game where I saw the Rakan and I was like, damn, that's what I want to see. So I think he has also been pretty bad. Again, then the tiebreaker kind of changed everything with the way I view Fnatic. It was like Reckless playing great, Hylissang had amazing engages, Broxa played great, Bwipo, he did things, and
he did things.
And that's kind of what I want to see from Fnatic. I want to see a consistent Bwipo, I want to see a consistent Caps, Broxa. Just keep doing what you're doing. I'd even say fucking don't focus so much on the Trundle, sacrifice the pick for like he's been playing great. I'm sure he can play great other picks other than Trundle. Sacrifice that pick, get something for Reckless if you can earlier on. Get more consistency and stop drafting so much for late game. You've shown you can play the Reckless, that Reckless can play the Xayah now. That's a great pick. I don't know if they were saving that for the next stage or something, but it worked. It worked for TL. They didn't pick it. I didn't think Reckless could play Xayah.
Yeah.
And they needed a TL, and then they picked it. And I'm like, yeah. Definitely major improvements in draft, smart drafting as well in terms of bans, and I kind of want to see that going forward from Fnatic. So overall, they've been shaky, but I'm like kind of impressed by them. That's why I gave them a C+ at the end. Like they were okay, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, I agree to like some of the things, but I kind of like I definitely don't agree that. Or I don't definitely, but I kind of disagree. I kind of disagree that Caps was one of like the shining moments of Fnatic. I mean, personally, I think Caps is a little bit like when it comes to how people rate him. Like he has some really high highs, but when he has his lows and like maybe it's not on the individual level. It's more about like how he can translate his lead or his the plays he does in the game to more of a. In the team fights necessarily. Like, I mean, he's a phenomenal laner. I agree with you that he's probably the best laner in this tournament as of this so far in what we've seen. But I do think that sometimes like he kind of puts himself in a risky scenario where he doesn't necessarily have to take it, but wants to make the play in order to, generate a lead. So, I mean, I would still put him like top 3, like Maple, BDD and Caps for sure best mids in this tournament. I guess like I'm impressed to a certain degree with Bwipo. I mean, he has, for a rookie, he's really proven himself. He's definitely gonna have a career after this, whether it's on Fnatic or another team. I don't know yet, but Bwipo definitely showed his worth this tournament. I do think he was a liability, especially whenever he was on Sion. Although the Sion engages worked, I do think that there's times where his newness or his novice or inexperience in really high stakes competitive matches did show, where he would go out and Sion engage by himself thinking he got a pick and then he would die, something like that. I do agree that Hylasang also was both of Fnatic's bot lane was too questionable for me in terms of how they progressed, and hindsight's 2020 here, and I do agree that Broxa pretty much put this team on his back. That if Broxa didn't get those double smites steals against Flash Wolves, then Fnatic wouldn't even be in the knockout round. Like, Broxa literally saved Fnatic from losing those 2 games, and
I would say that's, well, props to Broxa, but that was also which I'll touch on when we come to Flash Wolves, is Flash Wolves' horrible Baron setup.
Oh yeah.
I think they did not clear the blast cone twice. Both times Broxa stole. I don't think they cleared the blast cone.
Yeah, that was.
Or I think they did
chill.
once.
Yeah.
Like, their vision setup is pretty terrible.
Agreed.
But yeah, props to them for stealing it, definitely. Like, that was pretty impressive. Takes a lot of calm to do that.
It does, and that's experience right there. Rookie jungler versus someone who's played on the world stage before. But overall, I give him a C minus, mostly because I guess I had higher expectations of Fnatic. Just watching them play in EU, I put them second actually in my predictions. I put Kingzone, Fnatic, RNG, and Liquid, and mostly because I didn't really watch Flash Wolves, and because I thought Flash Wolves did.
Trust me, even if you did, you wouldn't have put them any higher.
I mean, I've watched a lot of League this year, and I just have not had enough time to watch LMS, and nor do I ever really watch it. I will say that I really enjoy watching Fnatic. I'm not someone who, even if I'm from NA and I'm a Liquid fan, I can't really aboard the I hate EU train, because overall I think rivalries like that are kind of dumb. But I really like watching Fnatic play, and I was just disappointed in how they managed to end the tournament, and also their first day or whatever. So
sure. I want to touch on Bwipo quickly.
Go for
it. I said in my cons that he's inconsistent, and it really showed. You mentioned the Sion game, his Sion Qs are so fucking random. He just randomly Qs his Sion in the middle of a team fight and dies. Or gets 50% of his health blown off. But at the same time, you have these amazing games as Camille, where he looked so good. That fight in bot lane where he interrupted the
Zoe.
Some dash ability, I forgot.
Zoe
Zoe. Right. That was beautiful. Or the game he smashed Khan's face in the top lane as Ornn versus Vladimir.
Yeah,
that was beautiful.
Dude, imagine being a rookie top laner, and all of a sudden you're faced against this Korean titan of the top lane that's everyone's fucking scared of, and then you just fucking smash his face in. That's gotta feel amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely amazing. All right, moving on. We're gonna get to our last 3 teams here, and we should probably do this a little bit more efficiently.
Sure.
We got Kingzone Dragon X. I gave him a B minus. You gave him a B plus. Explain your B plus.
Well, I don't think giving them any. I suppose you could argue that giving them a B minus will also be fair. It's kind of a toss up for me. A lot of people say that Kingzone was obviously the tournament favorites going in, but for me personally, and which is why I didn't believe the hype. I thought that Kingzone were definitely gonna drop a game or two. I didn't think they were gonna look as bad as they did this tournament. But I thought they were going to drop a few. I didn't think they were going to win cleanly. There was going to be a bit sloppy, but they looked absolutely horrible. it's kind of hard to exactly pinpoint what's wrong with Kingzone, and the very obvious correct answer would be the meta. I think the meta shifted to a point where it's just, as I said, too fast at the start of the podcast. It's extremely fast. I don't think that suits Kingzone particularly well. I don't think they got a good read on the meta, which you can see from some of their drafts where they try to do like scaling type of thing. They innovated really well with the Ezreal TP strat. I like that. That's a pretty unique strat because, it allows the support to roam. You get to TP back, push the wave, stack the tier, whatever. That was really cool from them. But like, overall, they looked extremely sloppy. Like, only BDD and Prey played well, in my opinion. Like, only they looked pretty good. Khan has been absolutely horrible. Like, this is the second time he does not look up to par, in my opinion. Like, I didn't like him at Worlds last year when Longzhu played. I didn't like him here. He's extremely inconsistent. He does not look good. Like, so, yeah, so he had a few good games, but just overall, like, from what you've seen, what he does in LCK to other top laners here, he just doesn't do the same thing. Peanut has been horrible. Like, I have not been impressed with Peanut and what he did this tournament. Big one for me was the Flash Wolves game where Peanut was made. That game should have been over. The game Peanut played Graves. That game should have been absolutely over. But like, either because of Peanut or because his teammates that did nothing with that early lead, and it kind of sums up why Peanut was benched. Like, Cuz looked infinitely better than Peanut did in his games. Like, Cuz looked really well. The Zac pick, obviously a staple of his, looked pretty good on it. I'm not surprised they chose to start Cuz because Peanut has been absolutely horrible. A big reason why Kingzone is losing, in my opinion. And just like overall, that I put Prey under my cons here, but I kind of changed my mind. Looking at it a bit more, I think Prey has played pretty well. Gorilla has been bad, not performing up to his usual self. And like, mainly I would just say it's the drafts and the meta that are just completely screwed over Kingzone coming into this tournament. I think that the main strength of Korean teams is the preparation. So like, you usually have a big break between like for example, not the group stage and the knockout stage, which Korean teams know how to use effectively. They know how to use that break time to analyze, prepare, even back in Brood War days and StarCraft days where players would just demolish Western players purely based on preparation alone. But you don't have that here. You have like a 2-day break. So I'm worried about Kingzone going forward. They looked absolutely shaky. But like, when you compare them to the rest of the pool, like you have Fnatic, Team Liquid, EVOS, like, they looked miles ahead of those teams, in my opinion. Despite Kingzone Fnatic taking off a game from them, which was a freebie because of a horrible level 1 by Prey. But yeah, I just, Kingzone, they need to sort themselves out before the game versus Flash Wolves. Otherwise, I'm predicting bad things for them in the future.
Yeah, and like, I completely, like, I'm so confused why this team, and like, I agree with like the meta reasons that you had, and just different. International stage looks a little bit different than LCK, but I'm so confused why Khan is underperforming so hard. The Peanut's performances like are a little bit strange because you could really tell that he found his mojo once he got back onto, or once he transitioned from SKT to Kingzone, because like, this tournament I was watching like end of the season SKT, or end of the season last summer of SKT Peanut, where no matter what happened in the early game, like when it came to the mid game, he was just entirely taking a back seat in deciding the outcome of the game, where he was just like, all right, it's up to my team now to figure this out. And the Graves game was a perfect example of that. He got this incredibly massive lead and then managed to not really cover any of the lanes when I thought MLXG had creative pathing to make some of those ganks work out, but it was more about like, I think like a lot of the times they tend to tunnel on picking very low engaged compositions, and I think that's why it's been really hard for them for Gorilla to really do much. And it's not like Gorilla's always playing like Rakan and Alistar and all that. Like, he's playing a lot of like Kench and I don't even know, like, that kind of support meta. And I probably should have looked at what other champs he's playing before this, but I just don't think that this team looks like they're prepared, like you were going before. Like, they came into this tournament, Khan's playing, tanks for the first time that, not the first time, but he hardly picked any tanks in LCK, and now all of a sudden he's on Cho'Gath duty. I thought his Camille hasn't really looked that threatening, and I know that's one of their priority picks in their drafts so far. I do think they will clean it up when it comes to playing Flash Wolves. I do think that they're still the better team, but I do think that this is a concerning group stage for Kingzone, and I don't think that they'll be able to take the whole tournament like I assumed earlier. And going back, I think RNG are going to be the ones that will take it, but who knows? Alrighty, moving on to the top of the class of our report card. We've got Flash Wolves, and the one grade that we did agree on was Flash Wolves, giving them both an A. All right, Cho, why'd you give Flash Wolves an A?
Okay, so when you consider how Flash Wolves performed last international event, they were horrible. Luckily, they managed to knock out NA and get EU through, but overall, it was a pretty bad performance from them. Then they basically swapped out a lot of members. Stake left, their coach, their top laner. Kind of got benched for a rookie. MMD is still on the team, but he is benched. They got Hanabi. Karsa went to RNG. They picked up Mujin, who played for Red Bulls in the European Challenger Series. And nobody expected this team to do well. Absolutely nobody. Even if you went and watched LMS WODs, I watched a few, you would not be able to say that Flash Wolves are going to do what they did this tournament. The big reason for that is I think that Flash Wolves kind of innovated how the meta works for this in terms of drafting, which is counterpicking support. I think that they're like the first team I saw them do, which is they're like, okay, we're going to save our support pick for last. We're going to give a counter pick to Sword Art and then just completely roll over the enemy bot lane.
Mm-hmm.
And a big part of that, of course, was Betty, who a lot of people are surprised by. A lot of people are like, wow, this guy, who is he? Where did he come from? Like, Betty was rank 1 on Korean solo queue. Not a lot of people know that, but Betty was rank 1, which is no small feat.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah, he's been playing extremely well. Him and Sword Art are just the shining beacons of that team. Maple has been performing extremely well. Best mid laner tournament, in my opinion. Extremely consistent, extremely solid performances. Swain, Zoe, whatever you want to say, looked pretty solid. Mujin has been phenomenal. Like, if you watched him in EU Challenger Series, you would have seen him struggling against the likes of Gilius and Memento, I believe it was. It was mainly in Red Bulls, him and Thal doing most of the work for that team because their AD carry was pretty bad from what I remember. But here he looked, again, like one of the best junglers in the tournament. Mujin just absolutely phenomenal. Great pathing, great ganking, great knowledge of what to do at the exact moment. For a rookie, you have to realize this guy's a rookie. He went from EU Challenger to LMS to Worlds, or sorry, MSI. That's really, really impressive what he's doing. And another rookie, they have two rookies, which is Mujin and Hanabi in the top lane, who I believe was a Yasuo and Zed one trick back in solo queue. So when he picked up the Yasuo, I was pretty hyped for that. But he was really solid. He looks okay on tank, serviceable. The Yasuo versus Khan completely smashed him. It wasn't completely smashed him, but he did good. Very impressive Yasuo performance. And just all of this combined just made Flash Wolves look extremely good. Fact, innovative meta, players looking phenomenal in each individual role. My main problem with Flash Wolves is that they do stupid shit that they really shouldn't in terms of consistency. Like, their Baron vision is horrible. Like, their Baron setups are at times really, really bad, and that costs you games. Like the Fnatic game, as I said previously, their Baron setup was atrocious. Like, that Baron should have never been stolen.
Mm-hmm.
RNG had that same kind of issue versus the game. I'll talk about it later versus TL, but they really need to sort it out going forward versus Kingzone. We'll talk about that again later. But that's kind of my main problem with Flash Wolves, their consistency issues and the fact that Baron control is extremely important. You need to be able to effectively master that if you want to beat teams like Kingzone in a best of 5.
Yeah.
Koreans in best of 5s are fucking scary. They will punish any mistake. Like, you give them an inch, that's over. Like, if a Korean team gets Baron, you're not coming back. That's a game. That's 90% of the time a game. So
I would say higher than that. That's like
around 99% problem. Like, there's a small chance. So yeah, I kind of want Flash Wolves to sort that out. But overall, I've been really impressed, like, with the way they've been drafting, with the players have been playing, and if only they'll lose to RNG in the tiebreaker, I would have probably ranked them higher and RNG lower. But yeah,
agreed. Yeah, I mean, first of all, that's hilarious that Hanabi was a Yasuo and Zed one trick. That's like every Silvers player's wet dream right there. But yeah, no, I was so impressed mainly because like I completely counted this team out, and mainly just because I didn't have time to watch them. I mean, I thought Sword Art has always been very solid. I thought Betty didn't look absolutely terrible last Worlds. I thought, like, you know, ever since he's joined Flash Wolves, he has had, you know, some issues meshing with the team, but I think that, like, this year, like, he's just like, yep, this is the year of Betty. Like, he's had, like, even the games they lose, like, he's looked stellar. Like, the Ezreal game against Fnatic, even though they lost that game, he still had a phenomenal performance on Ezreal. I was very impressed. Maple, I've always thought Maple's been one of the dark horse best mid laners in the world, especially I mean, last Worlds, you know, he kind of had some hit or miss performances. So,
I would say last year, like, I don't think Maple was impressive at all last year. Like,
yeah,
at MSI or Worlds, which is even in like LMS, I don't think he looked particularly good.
Yeah.
Which is what makes like this performance extremely impressive from him, that he was able to bounce back in a manually.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I haven't. I mean, for me, it's always kind of hard to remember Flash Wolves because you know, they're just like that team that just appears every international tournament. Yeah. And you know, I love the way they play. It's a lot of fun, but I do agree with your inconsistency points. I think that the reason why LCK teams are so strong playing around Baron is mostly because, like, that the point you made, that if a LCK team or Korean team get Baron, that's pretty much it. Like, the game's over. I mean, like, there's been some exceptions obviously, but like teams playing around Baron have proven that that's what separates them from being the best in this tournament, like, especially with Liquid. Liquid had awful Baron setup. Flash Wolves also had shaky Baron setup, but sometimes that didn't matter so much because they were able to just kind of control the game. So, I mean, this team impressed me a lot. I loved watching them play, and you nailed it with that point about how the support counterpick matchup was one of the determining factors of how they would find their advantages. And I do think that there's a lot to look forward to in this best of 5 against Kingzone. I still think Kingzone will take it, but we'll get into that in a bit. For now, oh no, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it'll be a very close series.
Yeah, we'll get into that once we talk about our predictions. But for now, we're trying to, you know, we're running out of time a little bit here, so we're gonna just jump right on over to RNG, the kings of MSI. I love watching RNG play well. It is so much fun. Like, Uzi on Kaisa, just like, dude,
no.
Like, I'm erect. Like, dude, it's so much fun. Like, he is the best player in the world, like, hands down right now.
Sure, I can see that.
Considering that Faker and some of the LCK giants are inconsistent nowadays, or just are a little bit back and forth. But right now, Uzi's performances have been by far the best in the world, and that makes me very excited. But our grades were different. I gave them an A. You gave them an A+. Explain why they get an A+.
Right, so before the event, RNG had visa issues, and I think they arrived very late into Germany, which didn't give them a lot of time to practice, and that's why they looked really bad, in my opinion, the early days they played. Like, I think day 1 they looked pretty bad, despite beating Fnatic. Day 2 even, but then after that they stepped it up massively. Like, the big reason for that is bot lane. Like, Uzi, as you said, is the best player in the world. Absolutely no contest, but people overlook Ming. Ming is a great support player. He complements Uzi's playstyle so well. And them two together are probably the best bot lane in the world at the current moment. Like, I don't think anyone comes close.
Hard agree.
And just having Uzi and, like, Ming bot lane, this amazing bot lane that I think would lose to, like, anyone in any match. You get a negative matchup, Uzi would still win. It's just such an amazing win condition for RNG. Despite, in my opinion, players like Zhao Hu not being that impressive. But, like, you don't need Zhao Hu to be impressive. Just let him sit mid. You know, can you pick him Karma or something? Just let him wave clear. He doesn't need to do anything. He doesn't need to get fed. Just let Uzi. Yeah, just let Uzi do his thing. Like, such an amazing player. Like, every champion he played, every game, he looked really, really, really good. I don't think there was a game he looked like bad. He solo
Nah,
demolished Reckless. Like,
I would argue
um,
the one game they had against Liquid, like the first one where Ming and
okay, sure, yeah.
MLXG or no, Ming and Uzi were just kind of like, well, it was mostly Ming just inting into Cape Morg as Zyricon, but
Yeah, to be fair, they got kind of like, what
that
was
was
Ming
one
playing that game? What was Ming playing? Rakan, was it? Or...
yeah, RNG were playing Zyricon, and then Liquid got Cape Morg, so that.
Yeah, that's a horrible matchup for the Rakan.
That's a RNG draft special right there.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have those brain farts.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have Let Me in the top lane, who has looked really good. Like, he was solid. Like, despite people memeing him in chat, like, let me in and all that sort of stuff, I thought he looked good, especially because people were saying, like, oh, RNG should have taken Zitai and let me instead of Karza because, that gives them more options in terms of playstyle, but he looked pretty good. I can't really find any fault with him. Like, does his job solidly on tanks. I think he's played a carry this tournament, but he doesn't really need to when you have Uzi. Just sit on a tank, let Uzi do his thing.
That's the biggest win condition you could give to them.
Their drafts have been smart. Like, again, doing the same thing Flashwolf does, counter picking support, giving that lane priority, just completely demolishing bot lane. My only problem with RNG is the jungler. Like, MLXG is like a guy that has split personality. Like, one is a genius guy who does amazing plays, amazing pathing, and the other is a dribbling idiot that can barely play the game on his own. And, like, it depends on which MLXG shows up. An extremely inconsistent player. If, like, an MLXG on form, RNG maybe even the best team in the world. But if MLXG doesn't show up, then RNG just suffer because of that. Which is kind of why I agree with them bringing Karsa in, due to MLXG being so inconsistent. Like, Karsa looked really good versus Flash Rolls on the Grace pick. Completely shut down Muujin. And that kind of gives RNG a bit of flexibility in terms of what to do. Another thing that I kind of hate about RNG is their Baron setup at times. Like, for example, the game versus TL where Smithy got that steal. Man, that pissed me off. You had a Zoe that had Flash, her regular Flash, the Flash she gets from her whatever spell. You had, who else was there? I believe there was Ezreal, and none of these people, I think even Ming on Rakan. Yeah, Ming was on Rakan. None of these people thought they should go over and pop the Blast Cone to, like, negate the fact that, the flashless Karner, I believe it was, or whatever, can get over the wall and smite the Baron.
Yep.
Like, that to me is just bizarre. Like, I don't understand how that happens.
Hasn't the LPL had like an insane amount of Baron steals the whole entire year? Like,
yeah,
it's like 50, like something absolutely ridiculous. Like, if you thought, like, Liquid and Flash Wolves have bad Baron setups, like, these guys are like, already, we're not gonna take a team fight. We're just gonna roll the dice here. So, yeah, and especially with your point about Let Me's performances too, like. Watching like LPL finals and just in general kind of checking in on RNG every now and then I did think that Zitai was gonna end up like being the sub, since like RNG kind of used Karsa and MLXG, or Karsa most of the year, then all of a sudden MLXG came in at the end. I did think that we were going to see the top lane subs kind of come in, and RNG were going to make that jungle swap decision, but they ended up, just trusting and Let Me, and so far that's worked out so well.
Yeah.
So, any other RNG points you want to add?
No, that's about it. It really just depends on what MLXG shows up on the given day. If it's MLXG that plays great, RNG's an amazing team. If it's not, it gets a little bit tricky.
If it's not,
but again, just
MLXD.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's
MLXD. Yeah, but just the fact that I have this like the best bot lane in the world, and it's a bot centric meta in a way with the counter picking supports and everything. It just gives so much advantage to RNG that it's like the time for Uzi to win an international trophy, and if he doesn't, sucks.
I want to see it.
Sucks for him,
dude. Right now, I have my RNG poster that I got when I saw SKT and RNG play at Worlds in 2016. And on the poster, it's just got Xiaohu, making a fist, like he's about to beat someone. And then you got Uzi just like looking at, every time I'm playing League, I look over to the left and I see Uzi and Xiaohu just looking like they want to beat the crap out of me. So, I want to see that RNG when they go up to the finals eventually. So, speaking of finals, we have finished our report cards, and now we're going to talk about the knockout rounds when it comes to the next couple of series we got to finish off MSI. So we'll start with RNG versus Fnatic. That's right. That's who they're playing, right? I'm blanking out. Yes, RNG are playing Fnatic.
Yes, RNG are playing Fnatic.
Alrighty, who you got?
All right, well, this is going to be a very, very sad matchup for Fnatic because I just think that the bot lane difference is so massive. Like, as I said, the best bot lane in the world versus with the way Reckless has been playing and Hylissang, just, I don't see anything happening in this game for Fnatic. Like, they may be able to, okay, I think that Fnatic they should approach this with the way that they ban out Uzi. Try banning out Uzi, ban Karma, maybe pick something for caps like Atelier, try to camp that bot lane. Let Me has been playing only tanks, maybe get like Bwipo a carry, like GP or something like that, or the Camille. Maybe play around through there. Different playstyles that Fnatic can kind of try and get the game going, but I would want to see them focus on shutting down Uzi, because I think like it kind of worked in LPL when they forced him on Ashe. I believe it was last split. Because I don't think Uzi looks particularly good on Ashe, because I don't know how much Ashe can do in this meta, especially. So I just want to see them target out Uzi, get something like Talia for caps, try to camp that bot lane, see how that works out. If not, then try playing around Bwipo in the top lane versus let me get him a carry, let Broxa do what he's been doing. But it's just that, because I think caps is a much better mid laner than Zhao, from what I've seen in this tournament. But like ultimately, I don't think it'll matter that much. I think those are Fnatic's win conditions, but RNG's win conditions are Uzi and Ming. So even if Caps, like for example, kills Zhao, who's like 3 times Zhao, who's like 0-4 or something, if Uzi's like 50 CS ahead and maybe he has a kill or two, it doesn't really matter. It's such a strong win condition for RNG that the game as a whole, unless Fnatic is able to exploit top side of the map for RNG, and maybe MLXG underperforming, I think that RNG takes this 3-1, maybe even 3-0. I think 3-1, I think Fnatic should be able to get a game using one of the strats I just said, like either through top side or maybe camping bottom, but Caps pops off a game and is able to carry, but I just think that the ball line difference is too massive in this series for Fnatic to do anything. So yeah. 3-1 RNG, more than likely.
Yeah, I have 3-1 RNG as well. And just to finish off the episode, or at least like, foreclose it, if you guys have any questions in the chat, go to the Twitch chat in our that you're watching this in, and write down a question. We'll answer them after we do these knockout predictions. So going back to this series, I actually, I said 3-1 mostly because China's bound to have one of those dingleberry drafts as they've had every now and then. I personally think that one of the main factors, or one of the determining factors that will decide this series is it's going to be, when it comes to the AD carry pools. Like, as we said earlier, Reckless looked like he, did struggle a little bit in terms of what he was capable of playing. He has the Sivir, the Trist, and then, he did manage to get the Xayah. And, I'm sure there's a couple other picks that he'll, thrive on that, aren't necessarily the greatest in this patch, but, still work. However, do you know if Reckless can or has played Kai'Sa?
He played it day one of MSI versus RNG. I say play very loosely. He just picked the champion. He didn't do much with it.
Yeah, exactly. And
so I don't think realistically he can't play it. That's what I would say, because he just looked horrible on it.
So I think that might be one of like the biggest crutches, because like that you're gonna have to force. You have to force that ban, or like have something prepared to play against it. And right now there isn't just a whole lot there isn't a whole lot to pick around that Kai'Sa, and Uzi's just looked absolutely like mind-numbingly incredible on Kai'Sa. So I think like overall then Fnatic could either have to ban out like those priority lanes to get for Uzi, and are gonna have to manage to try to figure out a way to shut him down. And but overall, like, essentially, yeah, it's the same thing. Like, they're gonna have to either put Bwipo on a carry, or really try to punish Xiaohu and transition that to a lead in the bot lane. But I also do 3-1 because I don't trust RNG's drafts 100%. All right, so we both agree on RNG. Do we both agree on Flash Wolves or King Zone? Who do you got?
This is such a tough tough series to predict.
I know. I'm so excited.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
like
good.
it can go either way. It can really go either way. I think that for like Flash Wolves, I think their win conditions are definitely improved. First of all, improved their Baron setup because Korean teams can punish that extremely effectively. You give a Korean team a Baron, that's it. That's game. Hanabi has done pretty well on carries, especially versus Kingzone, where you pick the Yasuo into Dinar. I think Flash Wolves should again try to draft around bot lane, get a counter pick with Sword Art, and just let Betty and Sword Art do their thing. Which I think they're the second best bot lane in this tournament behind Uzi and Ming. I think they can do a lot of damage bot side. I kind of just find it weird that a lot of these teams don't want to concede bottom turrets for whatever reason. Like they kind of want to fight for it, then a dive happens, and you lose the game off of that. Like it's definitely a bot starting meta. I do think you can maybe like give up that first tower and try to make plays elsewhere around the map. But that's mainly the thing I'm looking for Flash Wolves. Draft around bot side. Draft around bot side and maybe Maple. That's your win conditions. Hanabi's also another option if you want to do that, but I don't think that that's going to happen particularly well because the Yasuo pick was very specific into Dinar. Works in solo queue as well, has a great deny pick into Dinar. So I think that's how Flash Wolves wins. But that also heavily relies on the fact that Kingzone doesn't show up. I think if Kingzone shows up, like they figure out the meta, they play the way they can play, I think Kingzone takes this. The big thing for that is that Khan needs to step up. Khan has looked absolutely horrible. He has not performed well at all. Extremely inconsistent. He needs to play the way he did in Korea. Due to Hanabi, what he did to top players in Korea. And if for example, Flash Wolves drafts around bottom side, Kingzone needs to absolutely avoid snowballing that bottom side for Flash Wolves. Otherwise, it's going to be extremely hard to come back because Betty and Sword Art are amazing players. Another thing is Peanut. Peanut and BDD, they kind of remind me of Kingzone at the start of spring when Peanut just joined, and it kind of looked they had issues in communication between BDD and Peanut, and maybe even Peanut and Khan. That, again, is something they need to work on. They need to be coordinated. They need to enable Peanut to play aggressive, enable Peanut to do his things. He hasn't been doing that this tournament. Work on that. Just make sure Peanut can do Peanut things, what he's known for. But like both of these teams are like evenly matched. I really don't know. Flash Wolves looked great versus Kingzone. If Kingzone doesn't show up, I can see Flash Wolves winning, but I'm going to go with 3-2 for Kingzone in the end. I think that just that experience, the veteranship of Prey and Gorilla, and I also have faith in Hirai act scene, the preparation that not as long as previous preparations, or the time length isn't as long as, for example, Worlds, but I think they'll be able to solve at least some of the issues that they've had, and I think that eventually that should lead them to a 3-2 victory. But an extremely close series, if Flash Wolves takes it, I wouldn't be surprised at all, because both excellent teams.
Yeah, I mean, I still think it'll be close. I think overall, I'm going to go with 3-1 Kingzone. I do agree that it can go, a different direction, especially because we've seen Flash Wolves surprise. However, I do believe that there's a certain degree of, I'm not going to go down the, Korea's sandbagging in groups kind of meme, because I don't believe that. I just think that I think that Flash Wolves they've shown their cards, they've shown their holes, their weaknesses, and I think that there is a certain degree of knowing who your opponent is after you've played them a couple times, and I just think that this will go to Kingzone as long as they can stick to what's like made them perform well so far in LCK this year, and even this tournament as well. I do think that it is a little bit concerning that they haven't been able to nail it completely, but I think that overall that Kingzone will be strong enough to go to the finals.
I agree.
And very quickly, since it's kind of a little bit far-fetched and we haven't seen the semis, if you got Kingzone versus RNG, who do you have winning it all? Just based on groups. Very quickly.
Based on groups, RNG 3-1. Just basing it off of group stage and everything relating to that, I think that RNG will take it, but obviously need to see how semis.
Yeah,
there's a lot more factors. Like
I know. Just
theoretically speaking,
just for future reference.
Yeah, like based on groups, I'd say 3-1 RNG.
I go 3-2 RNG, just because That would be so much fucking fun. Damn. I would love that. That would be so cool.
That'd be pretty hype.
Alrighty. So it doesn't appear that we have any questions, mainly because we've been going for a while, and this is and we've had our fun technical difficulties throughout the podcast. But this will be
Thanks,
all.
Discord.
Yeah, thank you, Discord. This will be all for our LCK podcast review today. We do have a question from Silver Hunter 20.
All right.
This better be good. As we eagerly await his response. But we'll take this short period of time
There we go.
to plug in our Twitter accounts. Which is better, a dude who speaks languages or a person who could say the word duck in 24? Oh, speaks 2 languages. Wait. I'm so confused. Oh, a dude who can speak 2 languages or a person who could say the word duck in 24?
I mean, it's obvious.
Say duck. Ducks are important, dude. How do you say duck in Spanish? I think it's pato.
El Duck.
El duck. Yep, there you go. All right, that's good, man. Also good podcast. Thank you so much, Hunter. That'll be all for our show today. Thank you so much for sticking with us through the technical difficulties and our long podcast. I think next time we'll shoot for trying to shorten it down a little bit just for viewing pleasure. But
Yeah, awesome. Should be no technical difficulties next time, unless
Yeah.
Discord decides to take a shit again.
Unless Discord wants to smite us down right when we start it. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great day. Enjoy MSI, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. Hope to see you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.